before she became the most famous mystery writer in the world. Agatha Christie was a quiet, observant woman from Torquay, England, a mind tuned to secrets, lies, and the strange logic of human behavior. By 1926, she was no longer just an author. She was a literary force. Her books, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, The Secret Adversary, The Mysterious Affair at Styles, had cemented her as the queen of crime. But beneath that calm, Police d'Extérieur life was not a detective story of triumph. It was a fragile puzzle of heartbreak, exhaustion, and betrayal. That winter, the stage of her life began to darken. Her beloved mother, Clara, had died earlier that year, leaving Agatha heartbroken. Her husband, Colonel Archibald Christie, a dashing World War I pilot, had grown distant and, more painfully, was in love with another woman. Agatha was balancing fame and personal tragedy like a blade on a trembling hand. The world saw a successful novelist. But behind the pages of Poirot and Miss Marple, a woman was slowly unraveling. December 3rd, 1926. A cold, bitter night. In Berkshire, the air was sharp, and the fog hung low over the English countryside. Inside, the Christie home. The silence after an argument was heavy, the kind of silence that lingers after something breaks. Agatha Christie, already mourning her mother's recent death, had just heard her husband, Colonel Archibald Christie, confess that he was in love with another woman, a young typist named Nancy Neal. He wanted a divorce. The words cut deep. Agatha, one of the most brilliant minds in literature, suddenly found her own life spiraling into the kind of heartbreak and chaos she usually reserved for her novels. That night, around 9:45 p.m., she kissed her sleeping daughter Rosalind goodnight, put on her long fur coat, and stepped into the winter darkness. Without telling anyone where she was going, she climbed into her green Maurice Cowley and drove away. The following morning, her car was discovered abandoned near Newlands Corner, Surrey, a lonely chalk pit off a country road. The scene was hauntingly cinematic. The headlights were still on, the car left in neutral, as if she had simply vanished mid. Inside were her fur coat, driver's license, and an expired insurance card. There was no sign of Agatha. To the police, it looked like a suicide or an accident. To her millions of fans, it was unimaginable. The greatest mystery writer in the world had disappeared, leaving behind a real-life mystery no one could solve. Newspapers exploded with headlines. Crowds gathered at the site. Volunteers searched woods, ponds, and fields. Even fellow author Sir Arthur Conan Doyle joined in, bringing a psychic to help find her. But there was no trace of Agatha Christie, only her empty car, and a question that would echo across decades. How could a woman who invented the perfect crime become its victim? News spread like wildfire. Famous author vanishes, screamed the morning headlines, splashed across every British newspaper. The story of Agatha Christie's disappearance consumed the nation, a real-life mystery that even the sharpest detectives couldn't untangle. Within hours, hundreds of volunteers poured into the countryside. Policemen on horseback scoured the fields, while search parties with lanterns combed through the dark forests of Surrey. Police dogs followed faint trails that led to frozen ponds and dead ends. Every clue seemed to dissolve into mist. The search grew so massive that it became one of the largest manhunts in British history. Even other writers joined in, most famously Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes. Desperate to help, he took one of Agatha's gloves to a spirit medium, hoping that perhaps the supernatural could do what logic could not: find the missing queen of crime. All of England seemed to hold its breath. Cars were stopped and searched. Lakes were drained in hopes of finding her body. Posters with Agatha's face were pinned to trees, post offices, and railway stations. The press speculated endlessly, feeding the public's appetite for intrigue. Rumors swirled in every cafe, pub, and parlor. Did she take her own life? Was she kidnapped? Or was this a story only Agatha herself could have written? As days passed with no sign of her, theories grew darker and more fantastic. Some claimed she had been murdered, others whispered she was hiding in disguise, and a few wondered if she had orchestrated the whole thing, the ultimate publicity stunt from the greatest mystery writer alive. But there were no answers. No ransom, no note, no clue, only silence, deep and chilling. The woman who had built her career on unraveling impossible mysteries had now become one, and the whole world waited for the next chapter. Days stretched into weeks, and the disappearance of Agatha Christie grew from a shocking headline into a full-blown national obsession. Over 1,000 police officers combed the English countryside, the largest manhunt the country had ever seen. Newspapers churned out daily updates, each more speculative than the last. The public's sympathy quickly transformed into feverish curiosity. Every citizen seemed to become a detective overnight, piecing together fragments of information in an attempt to solve a puzzle that had no clear edges. Theories ran wild across the nation. Some insisted Agatha had orchestrated the disappearance as a cunning publicity stunt, a calculated move to boost her book sales. Others suggested the tragedy of grief had caused a psychological break, a sudden amnesia brought on by emotional shock, leaving her wandering, lost, and unrecognizable. And in quieter whispers, there were darker suspicions. Had her husband, Colonel Archibald Christie, somehow been involved? Could betrayal and heartbreak have tipped private tensions into something sinister? The emotional tension gripped everyone, from London drawing rooms to small village pubs. Readers began to reread her novels, combing through every line, convinced that Agatha, the master of mystery, had left hidden messages or coded clues about her whereabouts. Every twist in her plots was scrutinized as though it might reveal a secret about her own life. Meanwhile, the pressure on the authorities mounted. Each hour without news seemed to deepen the impossibility of the situation. Police officers admitted privately that the case defied conventional logic. The more they investigated, the more it seemed as though Christie herself had scripted the entire disappearance. A story with no witnesses, no explanations, and no clear resolution. And then, just 11 days after she had vanished into the night, the unimaginable occurred, a twist that no one had predicted. A revelation so shocking it would forever become part of the legend of the woman who had made a career of creating mysteries. The missing author was found alive, far from home, under circumstances that would leave the world questioning everything it thought it knew about Agatha Christie. On December 14, 1926, a man in the spa town of Harrogate, nearly 200 miles from her home, recognized a woman staying at the Swan Hydropathic Hotel. She was polite, composed, and registered under the name Mrs. Teresa Neal, the same surname as her husband's mistress. When police arrived with Archie, they found Agatha calmly reading the newspaper in the lounge. She looked up at him, expressionless, as though meeting a stranger. She claimed she had no memory of who she was, how she got there, or why she was using that name. Doctors diagnosed her with fugue state, a rare form of dissociative amnesia triggered by trauma and stress. The case was officially closed, but the public was not satisfied. Was it truly amnesia, or had the master of mystery staged her own disappearance? An elaborate performance, a message to the man who broke her heart. At the Swan Hydropathic Hotel in Harrogate, witnesses were struck by the strange normalcy of Agatha Christie's behavior. She attended dances, read magazines in the lounge, and even played the piano with effortless grace. There was no sign of panic, confusion, or distress, only a calm, almost radiant composure. To those who saw her, she seemed free, as if the weight of her personal tragedies had been lifted, if only for a short while. When she returned home, she did so quietly, with no public statement, no interviews, and no confession. The 11 days that had captured the nation's attention were folded into silence. Agatha buried the episode beneath layers of privacy and control, revealing nothing to the world, and perhaps to herself. Yet, the whispers persisted. Friends and family speculated endlessly. Some believed her disappearance was a deliberate act, a way to reclaim power in a life where betrayal and grief had left her feeling helpless. Others suggested it was an involuntary retreat, a psychological defense against overwhelming emotional trauma. In the years that followed, Agatha Christie never mentioned the episode again, not in interviews, not in letters, and not in her autobiography, published decades later. The 11 days vanished from the record as though they had never existed, leaving only a mystery that would haunt biographers, fans, and historians alike. For the world's greatest mystery writer, the most baffling puzzle was the one she lived herself. The mystery of Agatha Christie's disappearance endures, because it mirrors the very tension she wove into her novels. Logic pitted against emotion. Truth hidden beneath layers of illusion. To some, she was simply a woman crushed by grief, seeking refuge in time and distance from the heartbreak that had engulfed her life. To others, she was the ultimate storyteller, transforming her own reality into a final, unsolvable riddle. A real-life mystery worthy of her pen. Psychologists have revisited the case repeatedly, proposing dissociative fugue, severe depression, or post-traumatic stress as possible explanations. Yet none provide absolute certainty. Historians, meanwhile, suggest that Agatha, overwhelmed by betrayal and personal turmoil, may have deliberately staged the only mystery she could ever fully control, her own disappearance. In the end, it was the perfect crime. The victim and the detective were one and the same, and the world was left chasing answers that only she could ever hold. Agatha Christie lived a life that was as remarkable as the stories she wrote. After the events of 1926, she eventually remarried, finding happiness with archaeologist Max Muller. Together, they traveled the world, from the deserts of Mesopotamia to the historic ruins of the Middle East, journeys that would inspire many of her later novels. Christie's career continued to flourish, producing some of the most beloved and enduring works of literature the world has ever known. She authored over 60 novels, countless short stories, and wrote them out. The world's longest-running play, which continues to captivate audiences decades later. Her books have sold billions of copies, placing her second only to the Bible in total worldwide distribution. A testament to the universal fascination, with her intricate plots, unforgettable characters, and masterful suspense. Yet, despite the fame, wealth, and accolades, the 11 days that defined one of the greatest real-life mysteries in literary history remain unsolved. In December 1926, Agatha Christie vanished without a trace, leaving behind only an abandoned car, a set of gloves, and a nation desperate for answers. The circumstances of her disappearance, registering at a hotel under a false name, seemingly carefree and composed, yet providing no explanation, have fueled speculation for nearly a century. Was it grief, brought on by the death of her mother and the betrayal of her husband? Was it an act of revenge, a carefully orchestrated plan to humiliate the man who had broken her heart? Or was it a subconscious escape, a psychological retreat from a world that had become too overwhelming, too painful to face? We may never know the truth. Agatha Christie herself never spoke of it. She never revealed the motivations behind her disappearance, and she omitted any mention of those 11 days from her autobiography. Perhaps, in keeping the story locked away in silence, she preserved the one mystery she could fully control, her own. Because sometimes, the greatest mystery is not written in ink, plotted in chapters, or revealed in the twists of a story. The greatest mystery can be far closer, far more intimate, and infinitely more unknowable. It lies in the heart and mind of the one who lives it. For Agatha Christie, the author who created some of the most intricate and compelling puzzles of the literary world, the ultimate mystery was not a fictional crime to be solved, but a fragment of her own life, a vanishing act that continues to intrigue, confound, and inspire readers and historians alike. Her disappearance reminds us that even those who master the art of revealing secrets can hold the deepest ones closest to themselves. In her absence, she left the world with countless stories, unforgettable characters, and a final, enduring enigma, one that no detective, scholar, or reader has ever fully unraveled. Agatha Christie's 11 Missing Days remain a testament to the complexity of human emotion, the power of secrecy, and the genius of a woman who could transform her own life into the most perfect mystery of all. Verdict Files, where truth meets mystery. You've just heard one of history's most fascinating disappearances. A story where reality blurred with fiction, and the master of mystery became her own greatest enigma. Here on Verdict Files, we go beyond headlines and history books to uncover the real stories behind the world's most puzzling crimes, unsolved cases, and forgotten truths. Every week, we reopen a different case. Sometimes famous, sometimes lost to time, and explore the motives, the secrets, and the shadows that still haunt them. From cold cases to historic disappearances, from criminal psychology to legendary manhunts. Our goal is simple: to question everything, to uncover what others overlook, and to remind you that every story, no matter how old, still has a heartbeat waiting to be heard. If you love mysteries that make you think, subscribe to Verdict Files. Because here, every crime has a story, and every story leaves a verdict.